Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here for another episode of Fight Talk, discussing UFC 264 in Las Vegas, Poirier versus McGregor 3. Before I get into it, I want to reiterate that this is going to be the second to last Fight Talk. These are the worst performing videos on my channel. Nobody watches these. The best performing Fight Talk video I've had was the previous Conor McGregor Poirier fight, and it still didn't do very good numbers. So, due to a complete lack of interest, I'm not going to keep doing this. So Fight Talk 30 for UFC 265 will be the last one. I believe that card is going to be headlined by an interim heavyweight title fight between Derek Lewis and Greg. I almost say Greg Hardy. We'll get to Greg Hardy later. Cyril Gane. I'll speak briefly at the end how I feel regarding that fight, and then I believe that one also has Amanda Nunes and Julianne Peña on it too. So should be a good one. But that'll be the last Fight Talk. So on to this past Saturday's pay-per-view. Great time. I had a few people over for cigars and bourbon, fights, all that good stuff on Saturdays. First time having, a small get together since the pandemic started. Probably had, and it still wasn't even that big of a crowd. I think I maybe had like 6 or 7 people here, and we all sat outside on my deck and watched the fight. So really good time. I did miss portions of the fights due to us just like talking bullshit and all that good stuff, going in and out of the house, just taking care of stuff. But I have gone back and rewatched some of the things that I've missed, so I'm prepared to talk about the things that I wanted to talk about. So I want to start with the one of the earlier fights on the prelims, Ryan Hall versus Eliot Zapporia. I found this fight to be incredibly interesting, and it's on the surface incredibly stupid strategy from Ryan Hall. Relentlessly chasing the takedown in the exact same fashion and leaving himself open for shots going in for it was just inconceivable blunder, in my opinion. And granted, I'm far from being a fucking fighter. Ryan Hall will probably kick my ass 10 times out of 10. There's no probably about it. Ryan Hall will kick my ass 10 times out of 10. But watching him like dip down kind of like to the side the way he was doing and trying to like sideways shoot in like with his head like this, and doing it over and over and over again and chasing nothing but that. I was saying the whole time, it's inevitable that he's going to get finished real soon. You can't keep doing this over and over. I'm surprised he can get finished sooner. And really strange fight that was. Come to find out, and he mentioned it kind of like in an offhand kind of way, he said that he broke his hand on the first punch. Now, I've seen fights where guys break their hands early. They don't go for the same exact move over and over and over and over and over again. So I feel like he probably had no game plan for that. And I can understand you may not necessarily train for what happens if I break my power hand? But I don't know, I feel like you would have other things that you would go to, maybe you switch stances, don't really try to throw a jab, and maybe just use the jab as kind of like a feint or a filler to set up your opposite hand. I don't know, incorporate more kicks, shoot for takedowns differently. I just feel like there's so many different things you could have done rather than going for that exact same style of takedown that leaves you vulnerable the way it did for him. So, and again, I'm no fighter, but exactly what I said happened. I'm like, you keep doing that, you're going to pay for it. And that's what happened. He paid for it. So, interesting fight there. I don't know what was going on there. It's hard for me to kind of come from a place where I feel like, I'm talking like I know what the fuck I'm doing when I don't. But yeah, that just seemed like a really questionable decision to me. If you can't, let's say your power hands, you're right. Your right's broken, so you're like, okay, my right cross is gonna hurt me more than it's gonna hurt them. Like I said, switch stances, pop out the right jab, kind of not even intending to land it, just to throw something out, just to keep so-and-so on their feet. Use your left as your power punch, incorporate some more kicks, shoot for takedowns differently. I feel like there's a lot of different things he could have done that same kind of takedown, which makes me question whether or not he even broke his hand, but he probably did. So, but yeah, interesting fight. Next one I want to talk about was a bit of a controversial decision win for Michelle Pereira over Nico Price. I could see why people would consider that to be a controversial win. Nico finished the fight really, really strong. He definitely won the third round, but at the end of the day, going into the third round, I thought Pereira was up 2-0. So even though he finished strong in that third round and won that third round, Nico Price did, it seemed perfectly conceivable that Pereira could still win the fight. And, when guys finish that strongly in the third round, you kind of tend to lean in their direction for winning the fight, recency bias, right? And the previous rounds were pretty close. I think there was one or two, well, obviously it was one or two, where I did feel like it was super close and really tough to call. Like, I was like, I lean toward Pereira here, but I could see it going Price too. So not a big deal, right? So when you're in a situation where you have a round that's that close, and then one guy decisively wins the final round, it's pretty tough to watch that guy lose the fight. But at the end of the day, if the judges have him winning the first two, unless he wins the third round in 10-8 fashion, which he did not, he will lose the fight. So interesting turn of results there. Turn of affairs, whatever the fuck the phrase is. I don't know. Turn of events. There we go. It's already been a long day for me somehow. But an interesting turn of events there. I like watching Pereira fight. He kept his acrobatics down to a minimum, but he did try to pull off a couple of crazy things, but it wasn't like, early Michel Pereira just kind of like cartwheeling all around the octagon and shit and bouncing up and down off the cage and all that kind of craziness. So when he's calm and measured, he's really good, and he's big for that weight class. So that's a big win for Pereira too. Like, Nico Price is a big name to put on your list, so good for him. Moving to the main card, talk a little bit about Sean O'Malley versus Chris Moutino. As you guys, anyone who the 3 to 4 of you that are watching this probably know, Chris Moutino was not the original match for Sean O'Malley. He was pulled in, I think, about between a week and 2 weeks away from the event, off the regional circuit. This was his UFC debut. This was not. You don't want to make your UFC debut against Sean O'Malley on the pay-per-view card of a Conor McGregor fight. Like, it's not ideal. Sean O'Malley's been putting guys away really quick, really easy. This was not an ideal matchup. And the controversy with them stopping it with about 20 seconds left, I see both sides of that. You have you've watched two full rounds and 4 minutes and 40 seconds of Sean O'Malley beating the shit out of this guy. Like, and shout out to Moutino for not going down. O'Malley landed shots that have put others away dozens of times on Moutino. Like, like what they say, like his landing percentage was like 80-something%, something crazy. Like, O'Malley's best shots were like it's like they were just hitting Moutino and nothing was happening. But I think a lot of that too comes from that youth and that, not a lot of time being spent getting hit that much. Maybe you could take it a little bit easier. I sincerely hope that level of damage hasn't, taken some years off of Moutino's career or changed his career trajectory. I mean, he banked $75,000 in the performance of the night thing, but is that $75,000 going to make up for maybe his career being derailed? No, it won't. So all the best to him, but man, that was a clinic, man. O'Malley picked him apart. Everything he was throwing started landing. It got nasty, especially in the third round. It just looked like Moutino. It didn't even look like he was out on his feet, but it looked like he was just not even registering that he was getting hit anymore. Like, he wasn't doing anything to stop it. Everything was landing. His guard was being split with ease. Like, there was just nothing there. So from that perspective, I could see why Herb Dean would stop that fight, because it's like, okay, this guy is just out on his feet. And I doubt Herb Dean is sitting there looking at his watch like, well, in this many more seconds, it would be fine. But if I do it right now, it'll be too early. Like, I doubt he's taking that into account. He's looking at the guy getting his ass kicked and says, okay, that's enough. He's probably not looking like, let me see how much time is left to make sure everybody's going to be okay with this. So, like, I get that perspective. But at the same time, you let him get his ass kicked for the first 2 rounds, 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Why stop it now, right? And Ray Longo made a good point on John Anik's podcast, and that, this is a guy who's been, making his UFC debut. He's getting tagged like this. At least allow him to lose by decision, with 20 seconds left. Like, and again, I get that too, but I also don't think Herb Dean's looking at the clock like that. Like, let me make sure, Let me let him get hit for another 20 seconds. When this guy's been getting pummeled, maybe he keeps getting hit, but one of those hits is the hit that does irreparable damage. So, and you don't want to have that on your conscience if you're Herb Dean, where you're looking like, I figured he could get his ass beat for another 20 seconds, and it just turns out that the blow that caused irreparable damage happened in that 20 seconds when I knew that I probably should have stopped the fight already by that point. So, yeah, interesting to see. It sucks to have a fight stopped when the guy's still on his feet and still seems to have his wits about him, but I see both sides. So, at the end of the day, incredible toughness from Moutino. Guy could take some monster shots, and dominant performance by Sean O'Malley. So, he called out Rob Font. I don't have any personal problem with that. It's kind of a crime that O'Malley's not already ranked top 10-ish anyway. He hasn't really fought anybody that great, but, I think he's shown between a combination of his popularity, the caliber of his finishes, that he's somebody who can, who kind of deserves to be in the upper echelon of the bantamweight rankings. And when it comes to Rob Font, if I'm Rob Font, do I take that fight? Probably not, because you're looking at, I'm up next, or I'm in the conversation to be up next. You got Aljamain and Petr Yan supposedly fighting again, right? You have Dillashaw and Sandhagen fighting. I think that's like next week. You have them fighting next week, and then you have Rob Font's win, which I think puts him in like a number one contender kind of status as well. So if I'm Rob Font, I'm either waiting for a shot at the belt or I'm fighting the winner of Sandhagen and Dillashaw. Fighting O'Malley doesn't really make sense for him. Now, if Font, let's just say, I will say Sandhagen wins, right? Beats Dillashaw. So now Sandhagen and Rob Font fight for a shot at the winner of Sterling and Yan. The loser of that fight can fight Sean O'Malley. The loser of Dillashaw and Sandhagen can fight Sean O'Malley. So, that could still end up being Rob Font. I wouldn't be mad at that. Now, there might be some bantamweights ranked around between about 4 and 10 that might be upset about that. But at the end of the day, they're not going to put asses in seats like Sean O'Malley is. So, and Sean O'Malley has done nothing to say he does not deserve that shot. So, I wouldn't be mad at it. Next thing I want to talk about, Greg Hardy and Tai Tuivasa. I don't need to spend too much time here. Tuivasa made quick work of Hardy, which was not surprising, but in that still kind of I almost felt embarrassed for him. Man, he got washed, bro. And I think the funny thing earlier too was that at an earlier press conference, Greg Hardy's talking about what he's going to do to Derek Lewis, and then he goes out there and gets flatlined in the first 2 minutes by Tuivasa. And you think you're gonna do something to Derek Lewis? Okay, all right, shoot your shot, bro. But I don't see that happening. But Tuivasa, on the other hand, has set himself up pretty well. But who knows what's going on in the heavyweight division? Like I said, I'll talk about Derek Lewis and Cyril Gane momentarily. But who knows what's going on over there? Gilbert Burns and Stephen Thompson. I have some thoughts on this fight as well. There's a little bit of controversy again coming out of this one. Dana White was upset with the quality of the fight. Excuse me. Fans were booing during the fight. I kind of get it. And again, I see both sides. But this is a different I see both sides. This is a both sides can be correct at the same time situation, right? So listening to John Anik's podcast, you hear John Anik saying he's bothered by the fact that people were booing and that people are upset with the quality of the Burns-Thompson fight because Gilbert Burns did what he had to do to win. And people are, Dana White was upset. Fight wasn't exciting enough. You got the crowd booing, shit like that. Both things can be true. It can be a boring fight, and it can be Gilbert Burns did what he needed to win. And I don't understand why people act like those two things can't be correct simultaneously. John Anik watching that and going, Gilbert Burns did what he needed to do to win, does not make it an exciting fight. So the confusion at how people could be upset with that fight, the confusion from that, it doesn't make sense to me. You should understand that, at the end of the day, a bunch of drunk fans in Las Vegas aren't looking for a 15-minute fight with 10 minutes of grappling. That's just what it is. Whether you, John Anik, are okay with that is a different story, but you should, as the premier play-by-play guy, should be aware and understand, maybe not agree, but understand why people were not satisfied with that fight. I, on the other hand, I didn't have any issues with it. No, it wasn't the most exciting fight. I don't care. I saw what was happening. And I agree with John Anik and that Gilbert Burns did what he had to do to win. He did a great job of it. He managed to avoid all of Stephen Thompson's potentially ridiculous shots coming from all different kinds of angles for the most part. And he kept his distance and he was able to shoot and get some takedowns when he needed. He won the first round. I think the first round was pretty uneventful. He got a takedown and maybe around midway or so through the round. Held him up against the cage for a incredibly long period of time. Crowd starts booing, understandable. Gets him down, does a little bit of damage down there. Wins the first round, uneventful, but he did more than Thompson did, so he won the first round. Second round, a lot more competitive. I think, I had it going to Thompson. I felt like Thompson landed more shots in that round, and it wasn't until it got down to the floor toward the end of that into that round. That's the second time I did that. Into that round that I feel like Gilbert Burns might have done enough to take that round on some scorecards. So I looked at round 2 as it could go either way. I kind of leaned toward Burns just because how he finished, and it ended up, it could end up either way. And then the third round, again, that one started off a little bit better. Looked like it was going somewhere. We ended up kind of the same way, ending up on the ground, which again was due to Gilbert Burns. He landed some really nasty shots down there, including some illegal shots to the back of the head. So that's a different conversation there too. Like the fight he should have been disqualified, Gilbert Burns. Those were illegal shots. Should have been disqualified. He wasn't. And at the end of the day, he definitely won rounds 1 and 3 and could have won round 2 on any number of scorecards. I believe he did win round 2 on one of the scorecards. I think it was like a 30-27 and 229-28. So I have no problem with the result. I had no problem with the fight. It was, I'm watching guys grappling for position. I understand what I'm watching. DC's doing a great job of explaining things to me. He had a great moment where he's like, Burns needs to wrap his left leg around and do the trip, do this trip, and he does it. So it's like, I have I have what I'm seeing from my experience of watching the fights. I have DC here telling me what needs to happen and what is happening. And, I'm sitting there fine. Now, if you're in the crowd, you can't hear that. I'm thinking of that from that perspective, too, watching that fight. If you're in the crowd, you don't get that play-by-play commentary. All you're seeing is Gilbert Burns pressing Stephen Thompson up against the cage for 2 minutes. It makes sense why they would boo. And I don't understand why that's so difficult for fighters and analysts to grasp. Like that's a simple, very simple concept. And I think it's because they're so close to it and they see what's happening, but they're seeing it from a different perspective. They're seeing it from the perspective of you are watching it on TV and you are seeing up close what is happening through your TV or from sitting in the first couple of rows at the event. And it's what you do, so you hold it close to your heart and you take it personally. But if you're somebody in the 200 level seats in the arena and you don't have DC in your ear telling you what's going on, and you're watching either like virtually impossible to people to see in the octagon, or you're watching it on the big screen there, you still don't have that commentary, and all you see is Gilbert Burns holding Stephen Thompson up against the cage for 2 minutes, and then taking him down and hold him down there for 2 minutes, and of course you're gonna start booing. So I don't have any issues with the booing, but I also didn't have any issues with the fight. So it is what it is. Burns did what he needed to do to win. And at the end of the day, you want to be the number 2 ranked welterweight who just secured a big win, and you have a couple of people who are booing you because it wasn't fun? Or do you want to put on an awesome fight and lose and now be the number 5 or 6 ranked welterweight and being out of the immediate title shot picture? But hey, people are thumbs up and that you had a good fight. I'd rather win. Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, very exciting first round. Went back and forth. I until the very end of the round, I thought that it could have gone either way on either scorecard. But once it got down on the mat, and particularly once Dustin got on top and started raining down elbows, I think that was the point at which it became Dustin Poirier's round. But Conor came out aggressive. He was throwing a lot of kicks, throwing a lot of punches, landing some really good shots. He landed some stuff down on the floor too. He landed some elbows himself. He landed a good up kick. So it was pretty competitive It could have gone either way until Dustin started like really raining down elbows. And I think maybe like around the last 45, 30 seconds of the round. And then when they finally get back up, what happened to Conor, and that was all she wrote. I do feel like if that fight had continued, we would have had a spectacular fight. I do believe it probably still would have went Dustin's way because there's something about the body language when those two fight. You could tell Dustin has no concerns about his ability to beat Conor McGregor. He's not scared. He's not intimidated. He knows that he can eat Conor's legendary left hand. He knows that if it gets down to like a dirty brawling, dirty boxing kind of fight, that he's going to out-tough Conor McGregor. He seems like he has no issues, whereas Conor looks very concentrated. Conor looks very serious. He's looking like he's making every calculation because he knows that if he fucks up one little thing, he could be put out. And that mentality is why I feel like even though these two are very close in skill set, if they fight, Dustin's going to win every time because Conor's going to be going in thinking, I can't fuck up, I have to be perfect, or this guy's going to put me out. And Dustin's coming in going, he has no fucking chance. Like, he can't hit me hard enough to put me out, and I can hit him hard enough to put him out. End of the day. And he can't do anything with me if we take it to the ground. So he has supreme confidence and supreme ability, and no reason to believe that Conor's going to be a threat to him. And it showed in that fight. Conor landed some heavy shots, and Dustin walked right through him and landed heavier ones. And that's why I would have given that first round to Dustin because, even if I looked at it and saw it was, let's say Conor landed 30 significant strikes and Dustin landed 28, I'm not going to be like, Conor, because Dustin landed the heavier shots. Dustin landed them more ferociously for more impact. Like he controlled the clinch a lot more. It was just Dustin's round. So, and I feel like it would have continued in that fashion. It would have been a thing where it's like, Conor's landing a bunch of great shots and Dustin's landing a bunch of great shots. They probably would have both gotten really bloody. And at the end of the day, at some point, Dustin probably would have put him away. And that's probably what's going to happen in any other subsequent fights too. So it was still a really entertaining fight. It was still a really entertaining card. I'm a little disappointed that it ended the way it ended. I would have liked to have seen, them actually have their fight to completion. And I'm disappointed in how many times we've had to sit through gruesome injuries as of late. We've seen a whole lot of dangling foots and bones poking out and all kinds of that's been happening a lot lately with I think probably with the prevalence of the leg kicks and how, you find success with those calf kicks and you dead somebody's leg, but you don't find success with those calf kicks and then your shin snaps like a raw spaghetti noodle. So I don't know. I don't know where you go with that. I think Conor's shot that broke his leg wasn't even a low kick. I think it was a high kick that Dustin checked with his forearm / elbow. So, just a bad, unlucky turn of events for Conor McGregor. But like I said, I feel like had the fight continued, it would have continued in similar fashion, and Dustin probably would have put him away in the second or early in the third. So, I don't need to see this anymore. I think Conor should probably try to I feel like unless Conor McGregor is the toughest, most determined person to have ever walked this earth, which is kind of, maybe old Conor was like that, current rich Conor may not be, but unless he is that level of determined, his days contending for a belt are probably done. I don't see how he can, I'm not going to watch him lose to Dustin Poirier twice and then think that he's somehow going to beat his way all the way back up. He's like 1-3 now in his last 4 fights. And that's what's interesting to me too, is that you have people who say Conor McGregor is done. And then you have people who say, how dare you say Conor McGregor is done? And then mention all the shit he did a whole long time ago. I don't fall into either of those camps. I feel like Conor McGregor is still for a very long time going to be a tremendous fighter and a tremendous problem for whoever he fights. I just don't know if he's going to be able to make it back to contending for a belt. But anybody else no one who with a record of 1-3 in their last 4 fights will be defended so ferociously like Conor McGregor is. Anyone else 1-3 in their last 4 fights, everybody's like, this person might need to think about hanging it up. And then you usually get people who go, now hold on a minute, you might be being a little bit drastic. Now you got people who act like that's completely ludicrous. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, kind of, and then they mention all this old shit. Like, oh, if Conor McGregor fights like he fought Chad Mendes, like, Chad Mendes, like, if anybody fights with the level that they were, with the level of passion that they had at that point, they'd probably be great. Like, you can't expect Chad Mendes or Eddie Alvarez, Conor McGregor, to show up anymore. He's just gonna have to adapt and just change. Like, but you're not gonna see that because he's not gonna have that level of drive and passion anymore. So, I fall in the place of like, he's still gonna be great. He's still gonna be a problem for everyone he fights. He's still gonna be a huge deal. He's just probably not gonna contend for belts anymore. It is what it is. He wants to do boxing and shit like that too. Go for it. But to act like it's ludicrous to think that he might be, past his prime when he's 1-3 in his last 4 fights, and no one else would get that kind of treatment at 1-3 in their last 4 fights. I think that's a little ridiculous too. It's not like we've seen a lot to make us feel like his 1-3 is better than it looks. Like, there's no reason to believe that. His 1 wasn't even that. Like, okay, it's like, yeah, you made quick work of Donald Cerrone. When is the last time Donald Cerrone had a win? I don't know. Was he lost 4 in a row, 5 in a row, something like that? I don't know. And Donald Cerrone's a tough guy, and I like Donald Cerrone. But at the end of the day, making quick work of Donald Cerrone when you're Conor McGregor is not even remotely impressive. So like, I don't get it. He got the Khabib loss. He's got 2 to Poirier. Like, and that's the only place that you can kind of give him a little bit of leeway, is that those 3 are a pretty high caliber fucking 3. So, but if you can't beat those guys in 3 shots, who's to think that you would contend for a belt anytime soon? So we got Dustin and Charles Oliveira coming up. And then, like I said, next month we got Derek Lewis and Ciryl Gane. Francis Ngannou was not wronged in any tangible way, but he was disrespected in a very real way. And I don't care for it. I think Francis has been continuously being screwed by Dana White in the UFC. I don't understand why it took him forever to even get a title shot. And now after 3 months, it's time for an interim belt because he can't fight in August. He said, I heard he said he could fight in September, and they went, not good enough. We want Derek Lewis in Houston for a belt, so we're just going to do an interim belt. And I feel like that's a huge fuck you to Francis Ngannou. Like, who is Derek Lewis to, get a fight in his hometown and just manufacture a title fight for him in his hometown to the point of essentially giving a middle finger to Francis Ngannou to do that. So I feel like he was disrespected there, but that's neither here nor there. So I will see you guys for Fight Talk 30, the final one. Both of you who might watch it, we're looking at Lewis and Ciryl Gane, and Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena. And then recently announced yesterday, UFC 266 in September. We'll have 2 title fights and a 5-round non-title fight, a banger. We're going to have Volkan Ortega headlining that one. We're going to have Shevchenko and Lauren Murphy as our co-main. And then a 5-round fight, 17 years in the making, between a rematch, a part 2 between Robbie Lawler and Nick Diaz. So that should be a really fun fight. So who knows? Maybe I'll do a fight. So maybe I'll do a Fight Talk 31. If that pay-per-view is really good, I'll probably do a Fight Talk 31. But we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But until next month, I'll see you guys then. Peace.